like you'd run from the law. By Clouded Stripes. Read by Rat Overlord. Summary: the third installment of the Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead series. AKA, Isiku's encountered villains before. Of course he has. Isuku was 13 when he first saw Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead fight. Isuku's encountered villains before. Of course he has. You can't chase fights in the middle of the night for years without having some things happen. But this time, Isuku's running from Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead when they hurtle past a villain fight. It's just winding down from the glimpse Isuku got, and he'd love to stay and watch, but he's kind of under pressure to keep running. And over a gap in the roof, and then Isuku stumbles to a halt as metal starts clanging behind him and ducks behind a boxy shape on the roof he's on. He knows better than to stay out in the open this close to a fight, but he peeks around the box as soon as he's hidden and simply gapes for a moment, not even realizing his hands have grabbed his notebook and pen from his pockets, because that's Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead, and he's fighting with a knife, and the other guy has a sword in one hand and a knife in the other, and it's genuinely awesome! Isuku's barely even tracking his thoughts as he writes them down, leaning around the edge of the box to see better, to get closer. Isuku didn't realize when he moved fully around the corner of the box to have a direct line of sight to the fight. And Isuku didn't realize when he bumped against the box, making a dull, knocking noise. But the fighter sure did. One moment, Isuku was watching Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead clash with the unknown person, and the next, his vision was mostly obscured by the hero's back, and his left hand was outstretched and holding the other guy's knife! Holy shit! Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead tilted his head, but kept his eyes forward as he called back to Isuku.
Hey kid, are you good?
It's all Isuku can do to stutter out,
Yeah.
And Isuku can hear the tears in his own voice. He hadn't seen either of them move.
Kid?
The voice is higher than Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead's.
That's a kid over there? Fuck, no, I don't do kids.
Isuku blinks to clear his vision and peeks out from behind Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead, who's still holding a knife out at the guy. He lowers his sword and Isuku watches.
Nah, I'm going elsewhere. Night Eraser, take care of your kid, won't ya?
He backs up to the edge of the roof.
And you can keep the knife!
It's not until he disappears into the darkness that Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead turns to Isuku, tucks his knife out of sight, drops the other one on the roof, and swiftly pats Isuku down, watching for any flinching. When he's satisfied, he levels Isuku with the most furious look Isuku's ever seen him wear, which says a lot.
You should have gone home the moment I was engaged in a fight,
he says, voice quiet and serious and livid.
You do not have the skills to stay so close to a fight like that, let alone be in one. You would have died tonight if I had been anyone else. You will either fix that or go home permanently. Am I understood?
Isuku's voice feels small in his throat as he says, Yes, Eraser.
Good. Now, I'm going to escort you home where you will stay for the rest of the night.
Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead pauses, then nods to the ground.
You may as well keep the knife. I've got my own. I get to...
Isuku cuts off halfway through as red eyes glare at him.
I get to keep the knife? I just said that. Now, home.
As soon as Isuku gets home, he sets his knife, on his desk and pulls out his notebook to clean up and add to his notes. He already had notes on Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead before, of course, but now he's seen him fight. A grin tugs at his lips as he reads over his notes and lays out his notebook with his Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead notes. That had been awesome! He saw Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead fight! And he has a knife now! Wait, how does he use the knife? Isuku was very careful to hide during fights after that. And there were fights. Isuku hasn't been involved in them, of course, but he's seen Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead get in fights. A lot of fights. Before noticing him and chasing him, pausing after starting to chase him, getting distracted and needing to track Isuku down again to chase him home. Isuku's seen him outnumbered, but not outmatched, has seen him win with ease and win, but not without a fight. Incidentally, years later, the USJ was a jarring shock for Isuku. He's never seen Eraserhead, feral pro-hero Eraserhead, so outnumbered and struggling, or so hurt. Isuku's seen feral pro-hero Eraserhead fight many times over the years, but he had never been so glad to see feral pro-hero Eraserhead as the first time a villain had genuinely been after Isuku. He had had stray attacks thrown at him as a distraction, but never once had a villain chased Isuku when he ran away. That villain had been aiming to hurt him, and Isuku had no idea what to do about it until feral pro-hero Eraserhead crashed onto the scene. Isuku sat in his bed and turning his knife around in his hands, the way still unfamiliar, and counted his breaths in, holds, and out. The next time he saw feral pro-hero Eraserhead, the man stepped out of the darkness and crossed the roof to stand next to Isuku and look at the fight down below, quietly observing Isuku and his notes for several minutes before he interrupted the nighttime air.
Are you carrying the knife?
Am I the knife? Yeah.
Isuku said, words disjointed as he processed the change in routine. He dug his hand into his pocket and pulled out the knife, tucked inside a leather sheath with slightly clumsy stitching. He'd had to convince his mom that he had a new hobby to get the materials to make it, but Isuku had a lot of interests, so it wasn't hard.
You have a knife. Good.
Feral pro-hero Eraserhead stared, gaze intense.
Do you know how to hold it?
Isuku was officially confused. He held it out towards feral pro-hero Eraserhead.
I guess?
You should always be aiming to create enough space to run away, but you don't know how to hold the knife. That is a problem, so you will learn.
Aizawa-sensei was escorting their class off campus, and honestly, they all knew something was going to happen. They attracted trouble, after all. They just didn't know what would happen. Half the class was making bets on the nature of the interruption, and the other half were trying not to tempt fate, so when screams broke out ahead of their group, it was barely even a surprise. High-pitched, distinctly childlike screams, however, put them all on high alert. Within a second, they were all jolting forward to intervene, only to go tumbling as a darkly dressed figure burst through the group, scattering them like bowling pins as they entered the upheaval, and emerged seconds later, cradling a now sniffling kid, only to nod a greeting to Aizawa-sensei and carefully hold the kid out to him, saying,
Hey, afternoon, Eraser. I've not got my gear, so I won't be hanging around today.
It was an oddly familiar voice. Isuku squinted at the figure. It was as Aizawa-sensei was sighing and reaching out for the kid that it clicked in Isuku's head and he couldn't stop himself from pointing at the guy, yelping,
You!
The man turned around and squinted at Isuku in turn for a moment, while feral pro-hero Eraserhead lifted the kid out of his arms, flicked his eyes between Isuku and feral pro-hero Eraserhead, and then gasped and pointed at Isuku.
You're that kid!
He took a moment to look at Isuku.
Hey, you survived growing up. Nice job, Eraser.
Aizawa, absorbed in attempting to rescue his scar from being used as a tissue, made an absent-minded acknowledgement noise in response. Isuku grinned and bounced on his toes.
I did survive, yeah. You have such great taste in knives, by the way. It's still one of my favorites.
The man grinned and waved and melted into the flow of the crowd. It was Ashido who broke the silence first.
Okay, is anybody going to give us some context for this?
Her eyes were flickering rapidly between Isuku, Aizawa-sensei, and where that strange man had been.
Seriously? Anyone?
The silence stretched further until Shinso snorted and said,
Nope.
Yayorosu agreed.
It doesn't seem so. There does appear to be cleanup that needs assistance, though, and Aizawa-sensei seems otherwise occupied. Shall we?
Howdy, howdy, fellow rats. Hope you enjoyed listening to the final installment for this series. Sorry it took me so long to record this. I kept forgetting about it. Oops. ADHD moment. But anyways, If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like or comment down below, because I always love hearing from you guys. And make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with whenever I post. And here's your little daily reminder that thou must hydrate before I sick the feral rat armies upon you for your trespasses.